Welcome to another In the Mail, and as you might have noticed lately, my publishing schedule has slowed down. That is due to summertime, more outdoor/family time, at the same time more work projects which kept me busy here in the lab. However, mailbag items continue to arrive, so let's start with a series of tools that I recently purchased. First off, this set of needle nose pliers, which I do not recommend getting, and here's why. Now let me first show you the AliExpress listing that this product had. It looked like this sleek, high quality pair of pliers. Now this obviously showed some renders which should have been a red flag, but I decided to take the risk, ordered it, and here is what I got. Now the metal finish is not the best, but what bothers me the most on this tool is that the jaws are just not flush. I mean, look at this. It just looks like it has been cut with an angle grinder or something like that. So I wouldn't recommend getting a pair of these. You know, it might still be usable for various tasks, but every time I'll grab them, I'll remember how shitty they are. If you want to check them out, link is in the description. But myself, I'm just going to get the Weha, which is like 10 times more expensive, but at least I'll be happy because, well, you only live once. Next up, I thought I'd try one of these scissor-type cutters. I've never had one before. I'm not sure of their original intended purpose. I think it's sewing, but I got one anyway. I'm pretty sure they're not intended for electronics use, but you know, it's sharp, it does the job. I'm sure the blades are not super tough, so they'll probably get dull rather soon, but you know, it's going to be usable. The body is made out of plastic. It looks like the blades are attached using a couple of screws. So in theory, you could replace the blades if you could purchase them separately. But since these are so cheap, you're probably better off just purchasing a pack of these. They can be useful at the workbench for cutting heat shrink, for cutting small enamel wire, things like that. That won't be stressing the blades so much. So I think this is a pretty good purchase for $2 shipped. A link will be provided in the description below. Next up, I have a bit of a special spudger. It's made out of carbon fiber, which makes it anti-static and probably ESD safe. Now, it looks very nice. It feels like it's high quality. It is flexible, yet pretty rigid, so it's going to do its job as a spudger. I'm liking it, and I have used other products from this company called Relife. It's probably just a rebadge. I don't think they manufacture it, so it might be possible to find this under a different brand. I'm happy with this, and I think it's a good, useful addition to my set of spudgers, where next to metal ones and plastic ones, I'll now have this carbon fiber one, which looks pretty cool. Next up, some electronic modules, and these are called OlmBoard. They are made by my good friend Orhan, also known as Azeri Maker, and these are tiny open source boards based on the RP605K335B DC-to-DC converter from Nishimbo Micro Devices, which to be honest is a company I've never heard of before, but this particular DC-to-DC converter has some pretty nice specs, some of which are quite unique, and I'll mention a few, like the fact that it can provide the stable 3.3 volt output to up to 300 milliamps from varying input sources ranging from 1.8 volts up to 5.5 volts. So it is a buck boost type converter. It features a built-in battery monitor circuit with enable pin, which divides the input voltage by 3 and directly provides a buffer voltage to be measured by the ADC. The quiescent current is just 300 nanoamps and shutdown current 0.01 microamps, which is all very interesting for low power devices. The module is breadboard friendly, has 0.1 inch headers, and additionally there are these two JST-PH connectors for input and output for just easy battery and device connections. And like I mentioned, this is open source. You can find the source files for this board on GitHub. You can also purchase these ready-made modules from Tindie, for which I will put a link in the description below. Next up, I have a couple of USB Type-C connectors, which come in this panel mount type assembly, and I purchased two different versions. The blue one is a 5-pin version and can do 5 amps. The green one is a 6-pin version and can do also 5 amps. Now the green one already has the two CC line resistors, so I'm going to assume those are 5.1K resistor values, plus it gives you access to data plus, data minus, VBus and ground connections. Together with the CC lines, that's 6 pins total. The blue one only has like 5 connections, D plus, D minus, VBus and ground, plus an extra one which I don't know where it connects. So pay attention to these tiny differences between them, as they might matter for your particular project. As always, there will be a link to these in the description below. Next up, I have an interesting breakout board for the AS5600 from AMS Semiconductor, which, if you weren't aware, apparently they've been purchased by Osram. But we don't care about that, we care about the chip, which is this easy to program magnetic rotary position sensor with a high-resolution 12-bit analog or PWM output. So you can effectively use this chip to determine the position of a motor or a potentiometer or anything that spins and has a magnet on it. In fact, they also include this tiny magnet inside the package. So that can be pretty useful, as you can imagine, and might be easier or more elegant to implement and more reliable than the traditional optical sensing or traditional multiple hole sensor inputs. So I wanted to have this chip around to potentially use it in an upcoming project where I'm going to be using a DC motor. Next, I have a MAX98357 I Breakout board. So for a project I'm working on, I need an I2S or digital input speaker amp. So I started evaluating the various options available, one of which is this MAX98357 from Maxim. This will take a PCM input and will offer a single channel 3.2 watts class D output into a 4 ohm load. All of this while operating from 2.5 to 5.5 volts, making it ideal for battery powered devices. And I'm going to be looking at other options as well, because while this one might offer everything I need, it is a little bit on the expensive side at roughly $2.1 in 100 pieces quantity. But for hobby projects, this makes all the sense in the world. You can just hook this up to any microcontroller or a Raspberry Pi. There are libraries available and you'd be up and running driving a speaker in no time. Next up, I have a few breakout boards for the VRV8871, which is this H-bridge driver from Texas Instruments. And the plan is to use this to drive a couple of DC motors or pumps, generally low power, just a couple of watts. And the chip itself is capable of up to 50 volts and up to 3.6 amps and does feature built-in current sensing, so you can set a current limit with an external resistor. So if you need to drive a DC motor and you may want to reverse the direction, then using one of these chips is going to make your life easier with all of the features that it offers, because it also has that protection feature like overcurrent and over temperature. So that will save you a lot of trouble down the road when compared to a more discrete transistor or MOSFET H-bridge implementation. A link for this will be provided in the description below. I got this generic nylon bag from AliExpress, thinking it could be useful to organize some of my tools. Like I could use it to store all of my crimping tools into one bag, because right now they're all over the place. It could also be very useful to organize stuff in your car. It comes in two sizes. It was fairly cheap to get from AliExpress, but don't expect too much in terms of quality. You get what you pay for. It feels pretty thin, it feels cheap, it feels like this zipper could break if you pull on it too hard. With moderate usage, it will get the job done for storing a few of your tools, and I'm okay with the price I paid for it. A link will be provided in the description. Next up, I wanted to give a try to this Sling tactical shoulder strap, which, as the name implies, is a tactical piece of gear intended maybe to carry guns, but as you may be aware, in the EU, regular people do not carry guns. So my intended purpose was to see if this would be useful for attaching something like a hand drill or an impact driver while working either on a ladder or on a rooftop. So this basically comes with two ends, each with a metal clip. Then there is this section which is elastic. Then there is this plastic buckle, a plastic adjustment for length here. Then another one in line. It also looks like an adjustment buckle, but not sure of the purpose for this one. So yeah, let me grab a Parkside performance drill that I have and see if this can be attached to it. So I've just tested this and yeah, it works pretty well. These clips do fit the attachment I have on this Parkside Performance Impact Drill. And I've tested this over my shoulder and yeah, it's well supported. You can even also do like a single attachment and attach this to something like your harness or your belt, and then you'll have a greater working distance. So it is a good purchase. Next up, I also wanted to try this portable corkscrew bottle opener, and it looks fairly interesting. It was cheap, so the idea is that you slide the pin through the hole here, and now you have this working bottle opener that took so little space and weight when you go out camping. And I'm already using a different anodized aluminum opener for classic beer metal caps. I think I've shown that one in a separate mailbag video a while ago. But yeah, I like them, and these two will be going on a small keychain carabiner attached to my backpack or hammock whenever I go out, enjoying my time in the nature. As you may be aware, because I've mentioned this in previous videos, I do practice a water sport. It's called kite surfing. So I do use different wetsuits depending on the weather, season, and the big issue I have during winter time, because yes, I do practice it during winter time as well, as long as there is wind, but drying off the wetsuit during winter time is a bit more difficult. Now these thick, long neoprene suits get soaked with water, and you can't just use any hanger to hang it for drying because it will just slowly destroy itself due to the weight of the suit with the water, pulling on the shoulder area of the suit. So I need to use these thick hangers, or better yet, not hang it from the shoulder area but fold it over a drying rack. Unfortunately, folding it prevents it from drying on the inside. So I thought I'd give this hanger a try. It's very wide, offering more support, so it might help with spreading the weight better while allowing air to circulate inside the suit. There are even some fancy ones with a built-in fan to force air through the suit, but I find those a little bit too expensive for my taste. So yeah, maybe something like this will do the job, because this one, once you lock it in place, feels like it offers this wide support. And who knows, I might even do a mod and install like a cooling fan in here. Because I have a bunch of unused CO2 style cartridge cans, and I've always wanted to try one of these tire inflator system, which uses a CO2 cartridge to pump your bicycle tire. It's small, it's compact, which makes it ideal when traveling, because with a set of patches or a spare tube and one of these, you could be up and running in minutes if a puncture happens. So I decided to order this one from AliExpress. It was roughly $8 shipped, including VAT. What you get is a little foam sleeve to put over the CO2 cartridge and the valve head itself. Now the sleeve is to protect your hand from the CO2 cartridge, which will get very cold during discharge, potentially even freezing the vapors that condense on the cartridge. And one thing to be aware when ordering is the valve compatibility. As you may know, there are two well-known valve types found on bike tubes. There is Presta and Shredder valve, and this one is apparently compatible with both. So the way you use this, you're supposed to screw in the CO2 cartridge in here clockwise until it is punctured, then screw this into the valve head on the tube. And I don't have my bike with me here to give this a try, but then you're supposed to slightly go counterclockwise on the CO2 cartridge, and then the CO2 will start flowing into the tube. Like I said, I don't have my bike with me here to give this a try, but I will give it a test soon, and hopefully everything will be okay. Next up, I have the simple USB Type-C to USB Type-A adapter. This is a good quality one from Ugreen. Rated for USB 3.0 speeds, and I need this because recently I became a Mac user, both for my desktop computer and for my portable computer, and it's all USB Type-C, as you might be aware. So I want to pack something like this with my laptop just in case I need to connect something with USB-A, which is bound to happen, as there are still plenty of devices that use USB-A connectors or cables. And I prefer these cable type adapters because in my opinion these put less stress on the connectors on the motherboard of the computer when compared to the small plastic fixed small connector adapters. Next up, I got a few of these rubber BNC protective caps, And these ones in particular also come with the attachment ring, so they can stay on the BNC connector when the cap is removed, which is a nice touch that will help with not losing these. Now, since I received a bunch of test gear lately from Unity and Rigel, I need more of these to put on the unused BNC connectors on these instruments. It just keeps the connectors nice and tidy by keeping dust and moisture out of the connectors long term. So I highly recommend using these on your test gear. I saw this switch arrangement and it looked pretty interesting. I just had to order it, and it's actually made out of 5 separate tactile switches. But the caps are designed in such a way that they fit together in this circle, joystick type arrangement. They come in different colors, but without any illumination. And although the tact switches themselves look pretty standard, these are just 12mm tact switches, so it might be possible to find a variant that adds illumination too. In fact, if you search for the B3F-4055, which is the part number they give for these, you'll find tact switches from Omron for that part number, though I'm not sure the ones that we get here are actually genuine Omrons. Now, the whole assembly is about 38mm wide, so it's quite big, but then again, that can be an advantage because it makes it more easily clickable by people with thick fingers. I believe they also come with different silkscreen printing, but I opted for the classic arrow keys plus OK in the middle, which is a pretty universal setup. So who knows, maybe I'll get to use these in a future hobby project, but for now they'll just go in my box of switches. And a very interesting item in this mailbag is this IR preheater, which I've been looking at for a good while, thinking how it could improve my workflow for soldering and desoldering. So at my workbench, in lack of a good reflow oven, I still have the T962, which I modded, but it just doesn't give me consistent results, doesn't heat up evenly across the working surface. And this becomes an important problem on multi-layer, lots of internal copper PCB designs. So like I was saying, in lack of a good reflow oven, I tend to use the hot plate to do a lot of soldering of PCBs that are single-sided load, meaning components on a single side, and that works great for small quantity prototype PCBs. However, sometimes I had to do a double-sided load PCB prototype, which becomes impossible to do on a hot plate. And I also sometimes need to add 1 or 2 components to an already populated PCB. So preheating to something like 150 degrees Celsius would help a lot, because I wouldn't have to come in with a lot of heat from my hot air gun from the top, stressing the PCB and the surrounding components. If I could have the PCB already preheated at 150 degrees, then with my hot air gun I can just come in and raise the temperature just in the soldering area pretty quickly, putting less stress on the surrounding area, reflowing that part more easily. So here comes the preheater. This costs about $88 delivered via courier from Poland to Romania. So I think it's a really good price. It has a working area of 120 by 120 millimeters. It has this single, IR/ceramic heater in here, which is rated for 600 watts, 230 volts fixed voltage input. It has an adjustable temperature range from 100 to 500 degrees Celsius on this very simple 7-digit display with 1 degree C adjustment capability, and you use these 2 buttons to adjust up and down. It has this on-off button just for the heater, and an on-off button which is for the mains power supply input. And I'm very happy with the purchase. I've used it, it just works as expected. Helps a lot with soldering and desoldering of heavy copper PCBs, either together with the hot air gun or even on its own. It can heat up to reflow temps. I like these, adjustable rails which you can use to position your PCB just on top of the heating element. So I can highly recommend getting one of these if you feel like it would help you in the scenarios that I just described. And the last item in this mailbag is a set of syringe filters, and I didn't know these existed until recently, but one job where I need filtering of liquids from time to time is when I use my ultrasonic cleaner with the special PCB cleaning fluid. After a run of cleaning, the liquid itself is still good, except that it gathered a bunch of residue from the boards it just cleaned. So the method I used to remove that residue and reuse the liquid by filtering through one of those mesh paint filters put into a funnel. And that works okay, but it's still, there's a bunch of residue that passes through that, which is finer. So I thought, why not give these a try and see how they work. The idea is to use a bigger syringe and try to force the liquid through such a filter. And I've opted for this 5 micrometer filter size, which I think was the the largest size that I could find available on AliExpress. I'm expecting it to be pretty hard to push the liquid through this filter, but I'll see how it goes. I'll give these a try and maybe I'll report back in a future video. Same as always, you'll find the links for all of these items in the description below the video. And that was all for today. I hope you found something interesting to order. If you did, please let me know in the comments and I will catch you next time.